Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this week we had a very wonderful program. Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, Janmashtami, Nanda Utsav and Srila Prabhupada's appearance. So I would like to dedicate this bhajan to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has given us this matchless gift which cannot be compared to anything in this entire creation. We pray at His lotus feet from a song composed by Srila Narottam Das Thakur from a book called Prarthana. Ei baar karuna karo Vaishnava Dasa. Ei baar karuna karo Vaishnava Dasa. Krishna પશ્ચાતે પાવ ગંગાર પરશ હોયલે પશ્ચાતે પાવ દર્શને પવિત્ર કોરો એ તો માર્ગો દર્શને પવિત્ર કોરો એ તો માર્ગો એ માર્ગ કરુણા કરો વૈષ્ણવ હરિસ્થાને અપરાધે તારે હરિસ્થાને અપરાધે તારે તોમા સ્થાને અપરાધે નાહી પરિત્રાણ તોમા સ્થાને અપરાધે નાહી પરિત્રાણ એ બાર કરુણા કરો વૈષ્ણવ ગોસાઈ તમારા હૃદયે સદા ગોવિંદ વિશ્રામ તમારા હૃદયે સદા ગોવિંદ વિશ્રામ ગોવિંદ કોહેના મોરા વૈષ્ણવ પરા ગોવિંદ કોહેના મોરા વૈષ્ણવ પરા એ બાર કરુણા કરો વૈષ્ણવ પ્રતિજન્મે પૂરી આશા ચરણે ધૂલી પ્રતિજન્મે પૂરી આશા ચરણે ધૂલી નરોત્તમે કોરો દોયા આપનાર બોલી નરોત્તમે કોરો દોયા આપનાર બોલી પ્રતિજન્મે કોરી આશા ચરણે ધૂલી નરોત્તમે કોરો દોયા આપનાર બોલી प्रति जन्मे गोरी आशा चरणे धूली नरोत्तमे कोरो दया आपनार बोली दयाल वैष्णव ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपादा वैष्णव ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपादा प्रभुपाद Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Govinda Jai Jai Gopal Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Gopal Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Gopal Jai Jai Govinda Jai Jai Gopal Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai 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 Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Ramana Radha Ramana Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Shyama Sundar Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe Radhe Jai Radha Shyama Sundar Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe Radhe Jai Krishna Balaram Jai Vrindavan Dham Jai Lalita Vishakha Radhe Shyam Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Srila Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol, Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol, Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol, Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome again to the Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad group and Bhagavatwani weekly Sunday satsang. And today our presentation will be based on a very wonderful topic known as the matchless gifts. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada has indeed given us a gift that is uncomparable, known as the matchless gifts. And today's speaker will be His Grace Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu. Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu doesn't really not need much of an introduction in our Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad group or the Bhagavatwani group or in the GTA area. But nevertheless, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu, born Durban, South Africa, initiated by His Holiness Bhakti Marg Swami, he became attracted to Krishna consciousness over 30 years ago. And together with his family, he launched the first Sunday school for the kids in Toronto Temple. And he also assisted with the opening of the ISKCON Brampton, one of the pioneers of the ISKCON Brampton Temple. He served ISKCON in different ways, including ISKCON Niagara, and has conducted many courses towards the Bhakti Shastri degree course. So without further ado, I would like to invite His Grace Vaishnava Das Prabhuji to speak on this wonderful topic of matchless gift. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Satchit Ananda Das, for the very kind introduction. Although we don't, deserve such comments, but thank you very much. And thanks to Srila Prabhupada, Parampara, and all ISKCON devotees and all those personalities that have helped us to re-establish ourselves with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So today, this week was a very exciting, spiritualized week. It was surcharged, you can say, with the spiritual atmosphere, because we celebrated the appearance day of Lord Krishna, Janmashtami. It was immediately followed by the appearance day of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, which has been the inspiration for today's class, titled Matchless Gift, the Matchless Gift. But I'd like to open up with a sloka from the Bhagavad Gita to start this class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This particular sloka is at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, very famous. Most of the devotees are very familiar with the sloka, chapter 18, verse 66. Sarvadharmam paratyagya mamekam saranam vraj aham tuam sarvam papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. Sarvadharmam paratyagya mamekam saranam vraj aham tuam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. Sarvadharmam paratyagya mamakam saranam vraj aham tuam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. The translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada: abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So the question may be asked, well, what has this sloka got to do with these matchless gifts topic? Well, actually, it has a lot to do with the matchless gifts, because we're talking about purification, and we're talking about changing one's destiny, one's karma. And how that happens is by the mercy of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So I'll just read a little bit of Prabhupada's purport for you from this very same chapter. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Lord has described various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion. Knowledge of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Super Soul, and knowledge of different types of orders and statuses of social life, knowledge of the renounced order of life, knowledge of non-attachment, sense and mind control, meditation, etc. Is described in so many ways, different types of religion. Now, in summarizing Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that Arjuna should give up all the processes that have been explained to him. He should simply surrender to Krishna. That surrender will save him from all kinds of sinful reactions, for the Lord personally promises to protect him. In the 7th chapter, it was said that only one who has become free from all sinful reactions can take to the worship of Lord Krishna. Thus, one may think that unless he is free from all sinful reactions, he cannot take to the surrendering process. To such doubts, it is here said that even if one is not free from all sinful reactions, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, he is automatically freed. There is no need of strenuous effort to free oneself from sinful reactions. One should unhesitatingly accept Krishna as the supreme savior of all living entities. With faith and love, one should surrender unto him. So now we'll move on to the main part of the program and see how that sloka sort of, attaches itself to what we're going to talk about, is Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Now, we said that the topic was about matchless gifts. Most of you know that Srila Prabhupada has written many, many books. And one of the books is titled as The Matchless Gift. So there's one way we can approach the matchless gift. Another way, there's a store in New York City known as Matchless Gifts. And also, thirdly, we have gifts from His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, which are simply matchless gifts, which we will discuss later. But because it's Prabhupada's appearance week, I thought I may bring up a very interesting write-up on Srila Prabhupada's arrival in New York City before the opening of the Matchless Gifts shop. So I'm going to read to you, and we'll see how far we can continue with this session on the reading. On arriving in New York, Srila Prabhupada had nowhere to stay but the ashram of an impersonalist Swami. Now, to see students submissively listening to a speaker who denied the personality of Godhead was painful for the pure devotee. But was he to go homeless and beg in the streets? A holy man might have been able to do that in India, but not in Manhattan. Srila Prabhupada knew no one in New York City, but at least he had a contact. When Srila Prabhupada was in India, he met a publisher of religious books, Paramananda Mehra of Bombay, who had written a note introducing Srila Prabhupada to this guru based in New York City, Dr. Ram Murthy Misra. While still in Butler, Pennsylvania, Srila Prabhupada had sent Mr. Mehra a note and sent Mr. Mehra the note from Paramananda Mehra of Bombay, and also he sent his own note to Dr. Misra. He also phoned Dr. Misra and told him that he was welcome to come to join him in New York City. Now, a student of Dr. Misra met Srila Prabhupada on his arrival from Butler and brought him directly to an Indian festival in the city. There he was introduced to Dr. Misra as well as to Ravi Shankar and his brother, the dancer, Udar Shankar. Srila Prabhupada then accompanied Dr. Misra to his apartment at 33 Riverside Drive beside the Hudson River. The apartment was on the 14th floor and had very large windows facing the river. Dr. Misra gave Prabhupada a room to himself. Dr. Misra was perhaps the first Hindu Swami Srila Prabhupada met in America. Like Srila Prabhupada, he wore traditional saffron dhoti, and at 44, he was young enough to be Prabhupada's son. His complexion was darker than Srila Prabhupada, and he had black hair hung down right up to his shoulders. He was dramatic, showy personality, given to flashing glances and frequent gestures with his hands, and he regularly used the words lovely and beautiful. Presenting an artfully polished image of what a guru should be, he was what some New Yorkers in the 1960s referred to an uptown Swami. Before coming to America, Dr. Misra had been a Sanskrit scholar, and he had written a few books based on the teachings of the monistic philosopher Shankara. When he came to the United States, he continued to practice neurology, psychology, and acupuncture. But after a while, he took on disciples and developed his yogic practice. When Srila Prabhupada came into his life, Dr. Misra had been suffering from very bad health. Srila Prabhupada seemed to be the perfect medicine. His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami really knocked me down with love, Dr. Misra says. He was really an incarnation of love. My body had become a skeleton, and he really brought me back to life. His cooking, and especially his love and devotion to Lord Krishna. I was very lazy in the matter of cooking, but he would get me up every day and have me take this prasadam. Dr. Misra liked the fact that Prabhupada, cooking with the precision of a chemist, would prepare many dishes and that he had the gusto for eating. It was not bread he gave me, Dr. Misra remembers. He gave me prasadam, the mercy of Krishna. This was life, and he saved my life. At that time, I was not sure I would live, but his desire to eat on time, whether I was hungry or not, that I very much liked. He'd get up and say, all right, this is Bhagavat Prasada, the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And I would say, all right. Now, Joan Suval, an old student of Dr. Misra, remembers seeing Srila Prabhupada and her teacher together at the Riverside apartment. And this is what she says. I have a memory of Swamiji as a child, in the sense of his being very innocent, a very simple person, very pure. The impression I have from Dr. Misra is that Dr. Misra regarded him as a father figure who was kindly and good. But basically, the words most often used referring to Swamiji was like a child, meaning that he was simple in a classical, beautiful sense. Dr. Misra mentioned to me when I first introduced to Swamiji that he was a very holy man, very religious, wrapped in God consciousness. Swamiji was very sweet. I myself remember him as a very, very good man, even in the practical details of living in New York, which involved him very much because he was a practical man and was looking for the best place to begin his work. I remember very well that he was very careful about washing his clothes out every night. I would come in and find a group of students in the living area of Dr. Misra's apartment, but in the bathroom hung Swamiji's orange robes, which he carefully prepared every night. When Dr. Misra asked Srila Prabhupada about the aim of his visit to America, Srila Prabhupada expressed his spiritual master's vision of preaching Krishna consciousness in the West, and he requested Dr. Misra to help him. But Dr. Misra replied that he was very busy with his own teaching and in that in fact was planning to leave the country. After a few weeks, when it became inconvenient for Dr. Misra to maintain Srila Prabhupada at the apartment, he shifted Srila Prabhupada to his Hatha Yoga studio on the 5th floor at 100 West 72nd Street near Columbus Avenue. Located in the center of the building with no windows, this large studio included an office and adjoining private room where Srila Prabhupada stayed. Philosophically, Dr. Misra was at complete odds with Srila Prabhupada. According to the Vedic literatures, the absolute truth can be known or realized in three phases as impersonal Brahman, Brahmaati, Paramatma, Paramatmi, and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a devotee of Lord Krishna, Prabhupada accepted the Bhagavad Gita statement that Bhagavan is the highest aspect of the absolute truth. The Gita declares that the impersonal, all-pervading Brahman is subordinate to Bhagavan and is an emanation from him, just as the sunshine is an emanation from the sun. That the realization of Bhagavan is the supreme conclusion of the Vedas is accepted by all the leading acharyas of ancient India, such as Ramanuja, Madhva, and Srila Prabhupada was coming in the disciplic succession from them. Dr. Mirza, on the other hand, followed Shankara, who taught that the impersonal presence of the absolute truth is all in all, and that the personality of Godhead is ultimately an illusion. According to this view, the spiritual self is not individual. Rather, each person is identical with God, the Supreme Brahman, and there's no need of worshipping the Supreme Lord as do these bhakti yogis. In other words, Dr. Misra would put it, everything is one. Srila Prabhupada, he challenged this idea. If each of us is actually the Supreme, he would say, then why is the Supreme now struggling in the material world? When Dr. Mirza would answer that the Supreme is temporarily covered by illusion and can become enlightened by Hatha Yoga and meditation, and someday come to know that it is all supreme, Srila Prabhupada would again challenge him. If we are non-different from the Supreme, he would say, then how can we become covered, even temporarily, by illusion? If the Supreme were covered by Maya, this would mean that illusion is greater than God, greater than the Supreme, and that is absurd. Srila Prabhupada considered Dr. Misra a Mayavadi, a name the Vaishnavas used to refer to impersonalists and at the same time point out the flaw in their philosophy. Because the impersonalist philosophers deny the supremacy of Bhagavan Sri Krishna and inadvertently assert that Maya illusion is greater than the absolute. The Vaishnavas refer to them as Mayavadis, that is, followers of Maya, the spokesman of illusion. Srila Prabhupada pointed out that in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna refutes the Mayavadi conclusion. Unintelligent men who know me not, Krishna says, think that I have assumed this form and personality. Due to the small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. Fools deride me when I appear in this human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Our Lord Chaitanya also strongly refuted the Mayavadis. He said, everything about the Supreme Personality of Godhead is spiritual, including his body, opulence, and paraphernalia. Mayavadi philosophy, however, covers his spiritual opulence and advocates the theory of impersonalism. In 1965, Srila Prabhupada had already written volumes of commentary on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, in which he had thoroughly discussed the distinction between Vaishnava and Mayavadi philosophies. In his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, he had written, the ambitious Mayavadi philosophers desire to merge into the existence of the Lord. This form of mukti, liberation, means denying one's individual existence. In other words, it's a kind of spiritual suicide. This is absolutely opposed to the philosophy of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga offers immortality to the individual conditioned soul. If one follows the Mayavadi philosophy, he misses his opportunity to become immortal after giving up the material body. In the words of Lord Chaitanya, Mayavadi Krishna Aparadhi, Mayavadis impersonalists are the great offenders unto Lord Krishna. Thus, Lord Chaitanya has concluded that if one hears the commentary of Shankara, one's entire spiritual life is spoiled. As a mendicant with no followers or residents, Srila Prabhupada was temporarily dependent on the goodwill of his Mayavadi acquaintance, with whom he regularly ate and conversed, and from whom he accepted his shelter. But what a great inconvenience it was to a pure Vaishnava. He had come to America to speak purely and boldly about Krishna, found himself again in a situation he could not really discourse. Whereas in Butler, Pennsylvania, he was confined by his host's middle-class materialistic sensibilities. Now he was silenced in a different way. Though treated kindly, he was considered a threat. Dr. Mirza would not allow his students to hear the exclusive praise of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Dr. Misra, Srila Prabhupada was busy most of the time typing in his room, but would sometimes come out and give a lecture or lead kirtan. A boy named Robert Nelson, perhaps the first young sympathizer Srila Prabhupada met in New York, had his own impression of Srila Prabhupada's presence in Dr. Misra's Yoga Society. So Robert Nelson says, I first went to Dr. Misra's service and Dr. Misra talked. Prabhupada was sitting on a bench, and then all of a sudden Dr. Misra stops the service and gets a big smile and says, Swamiji will sing us a song. But I think Dr. Mirza will not let him speak. Somebody told me Dr. Mirza didn't want him to preach. Srila Prabhupada had his own reminiscences. I used to sit in the back and listen to his meeting silently. He was speaking all impersonal nonsense, but I kept my silence. Then one day he asked if I would like to speak, and I spoke about Krishna consciousness. I challenged that he was speaking manufactured philosophy and all nonsense from Sankaracharya. He tried to back out and said, it was not him who was speaking, but Sankaracharya. I said, you are representing him. That is the same thing. And he then said to me, Swamiji, I like you very much, but you cannot speak here. But although our philosophies differed and he would not let me speak, he was kind and I was nice to him. Lord Chaitanya warned Vaishnavas never to hear from an impersonalist. Yet there was no danger of Srila Prabhupada being converted or contaminated by impersonalistic thought. Rather, it was the impersonalist who would be affected by tasting Krishna Prasad. Now, to see the students submissively listening to a speaker who denied the personality of Godhead was very painful to the pure devotee. Still, what was the alternative? Was he to go homeless and beg for food in the streets? This might have been acceptable behavior for wandering sannyasis in India villages, but it's impossible in Manhattan. So for the time being, Srila Prabhupada accepted the arrangement provided by Krishna. He carried America's future Krishna consciousness within himself, a baby yet to be born, a bomb about to go off. The Bhagavad Gita had been read for thousands of years in India and hundreds of years in the West. It had been admired by Emerson and Thoreau, and now it's being preached in New York by Mayavadis who didn't believe in Krishna, but the real Gita had yet to be spoken. Americans had not heard the real message of Krishna as it is, and Srila Prabhupada fervently desired to speak it, as ordered by his spiritual master, but he had to struggle and wait. On weekends, Srila Prabhupada would accompany Dr. Misra to his Ananda Ashram in Monroe, New York, an hour's drive north. Now, Joan Suval, who used to drive them, remembers the two sannyasis holding animated conversations in the back seat of her car. Although she could not understand the Hindi, she could hear their discussions turn into loud, shouting arguments. But afterwards, she said, they would become friends. On many occasions, Prabhupada asked Dr. Misra to take part in speaking Lord Chaitanya's movement. But Dr. Misra sidestepped Prabhupada by saying that he considered Prabhupada an incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and therefore not in need of any help. Srila Prabhupada, however, would say that since Misra was the name of Lord Chaitanya's father, Dr. Misra should spread Lord Chaitanya's movement. Srila Prabhupada offered to engage him in checking the Sanskrit to his translations of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Dr. Misra now says he repents that he did not take up the offer. Now, the Ananda Ashram lies in the peaceful wooded setting of 60 acres in the foothills of the Catskill Mountains, that's in New York State. The place includes a lake with an island. Whenever Prabhupada would go to the ashram, he would hold kirtan, and the yoga students would join him in chanting and even dancing. Dr. Misra was particularly fond of Srila Prabhupada's chanting. I'd never seen or met any devotee who sang so much, Dr. Misra says, and his kirtan was just ambrosial. If you pay attention and become relaxed, that voice has very electrical vibrations on your heart. You cannot avoid it. 90% of the students, whether they liked it or not, they got up and danced and chanted. And I felt very pleased to meet such a great soul. Naturally, Dr. Misra would give lectures carrying the impersonal interpretation of Bhagavad Gita according to Shankara. When allowed to speak before Dr. Misra and his students, Srila Prabhupada would criticize the impersonal interpretation, although in a tactful way, describing it as the beginning step in appreciating the Supreme Person. Now, Herta Lurch, a woman who attended the Ananda Ashram when Srila Prabhupada was visiting, recalls his presence there. My direct encounter with him was in the kitchen. He was very particular and very definite, and he would eat only what he cooked himself. He would come and say, give me pots. So when I brought him a pot, he would say, no, bigger. So when I brought him a bigger pot, he would say, no, smaller. Then he would say, give me a potato. So I'll bring him a potato. He prepared food very, very quietly. He never spoke very much. He prepared potatoes and then some vegetables and then chapatis. He used to use the pots at the ashram. After cooking, he would eat outside when the weather was warm. He would usually cook enough to go around for Dr. Misra and about 5 or 6 other people. Every day he would cook that much when he was there. I learned to make chapatis from him. He usually stayed only for the weekends. Perhaps during the warm weather, he may have stayed a whole week. but most of the time he went back to the city. I felt that that was therefore his main work was still to be done. Now, Srila Prabhupada's work was certainly in the city, but what could he do with no money or support? He was thinking of staying only a few weeks and then going back to India. In the meantime, he spent most of his hours working on Srimad Bhagavatam manuscripts, writing letters, and walking in Manhattan. Since Dr. Mirza's studio had no cooking facilities, Srila Prabhupada had to walk daily about 7 blocks to cook in the kitchen of Dr. Mirza's Riverside Drive apartment. He would walk north on Columbus Avenue amongst a steady flow of pedestrians. As he stopped at each intersection, he could feel the sweeping breeze from the Hudson. Instead of the small town scenery of Butler, Pennsylvania, he first passed by a section of 30-story office buildings on Columbus Avenue. On the street level were the shoe repair shops, candy stores, laundries, and continental restaurants. So anyway, Prabhupada had been in New York for about a month and a half without money or any support but Dr. Misra. Cooking and distributing prasadam to the Mayavadis was surely a kind of preaching, but he could not regard it as an engagement serious enough for him in America. Time was passing, no great result, and his return to India seemed inevitable. But although he did not have a home or headquarters, he had an impressive sounding New York address, Studio 51, 100 West 72nd Street, New York City. And that was his address. He was very happy with that. But anyway, for now, I'm going to stop the reading, and you can catch up with that. It's in the Back to Godhead magazine. That particular reading came from Back to Godhead. This time, find the date for you. September 5th, 2021. The Back to Godhead magazine, September 5th, 2021. You can catch the rest of the discussion there. So going back to the Matchless gift. So shortly after that, in 1965, Hayagriva remembers that Srila Prabhupada, they discovered this curio type of shop called Matchless Gifts. And they made inquiries and they took possession of this shop called the Matchless Gift. And if you go to New York City, it's located on 26 2nd Avenue, New York. This place is now a place of pilgrimage. It is a tirtha. The maximum number of devotees that attend this particular location were 200 in number. And it is these 200 devotees who initially joined Srila Prabhupada that spread the International Society for Krishna Consciousness all over the world. All over the world. It was here that in New York City, the first ISKCON was established. 26 2nd Avenue, New York City. So on your journey to the USA, you may look up this place. Now we said we also have a book called The Matchless Gift. This book has 6 subject matters. It deals with spiritual knowledge through Krishna, getting out of the material nature, learning to love, learning tapasya, self-control, and learning steadiness in Krishna consciousness, and then transcending designations and problems. So you can get this book from any one of the ISKCON bookstores, or you can try and purchase this online. It's called The Matchless Gift. But His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada is one of the greatest personalities that ever walked this planet. And he has given us a few matchless gifts. The first of all, he has introduced us to Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a definite, non-speculative approach to loving God and all his creation. He's given us Kirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This simple process to reconnect us with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Now, some folks you may hear in your parties, in your weddings and religious gatherings, they say, what is to be will be. You cannot change your destiny. That is cast in stone. But we read earlier on from Bhagavad Gita, verse 66 in chapter 18, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Aham tuam sarva papebhyo moksha ishmami masucha. I promise you that if you surrender to this process of Krishna consciousness, that you will be freed from all sinful reactions. So I say to all those people, based on Prabhupada's teachings and what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, your destiny can be changed. Your bad karma can be removed. And all your future bad tidings can be put to an end if you surrender to this process of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and following the other rules and regulations as set out by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Now, Prabhupada has given us spiritual food, prasadam. It's another delightful weapon against the predictable future built on sinful reaction. All our future is based on all our actions and the reactions of those actions. We engineer future bodies based on our present activity in this life, and we engineer our future fortunes based on all the things we say and do. But all can be changed if we take Krishna Prasadam, chant the holy names of God, follow the rules and regulations as set out by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada has given us dancing in ecstasy to the chanting of the holy name. As that takes effect, it will be transported to the spiritual realm. He's given us books, hundreds of books, the Matchless gift. Compared to all the assets that we have, nothing will be more comparable to that than Srila Prabhupada's books, or more. They outclass any material asset that you have. In them are more gold, platinum, diamonds that you can find in this entire world. If you read Srila Prabhupada's books, they ooze with transcendence. They give support to Lord Krishna's statement that all your sinful reactions will be destroyed. He's built temples all over the world for us to visit. He's transported Golokul Vrindavan right here into a temple close to you. Right here you can visit these temples. They are Golokul Vrindavan, where you can experience or get a sampling of what spiritual life is like in the spiritual world. So Srila Prabhupada's matchless gifts are unlimited. They transport you, reconnect you back to Krishna, and take you back to the spiritual world. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll hand you back to our MC.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vaishnava Prabhu. That was indeed matchless. Glorifying Srila Prabhupada, his struggle, a transcendental struggle in New York, and bringing this matchless gift of Krishna consciousness to all. So before I open up the microphone for any questions or comments or reflections, there's one quick announcement for next week. We have a Vaishnava Tithi, which is 11th of September, on next Saturday. It is the appearance of Srimati Sita Thakurani. Srimati Sita Thakurani is the consort of Srila Advaita Acharya, and very, very grandmotherly figure to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, he appeared under the neem tree. And out of grandmotherly affection, Sita Thakurani started calling the newly born child of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata, Nimai, because he was born under a neem tree. And neem is supposed to be uh, what do you call, a deterrent towards bad omen, uh, a deterrent towards bad omen. And she, like a loving grandmotherly figure, wanted that all bad omen that can possibly happen to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be vanquished just by the name uh, that she had bestowed upon. And Mother Sachi and Jagannath Mishra gladly accepted the name Nimai. And later on, he was known as Nimai Pandit. So, and Mother Sachi was very fond of Advaita Acharya and Srimati Sita Thakurani, especially when there were special festivals. They were the first ones that were given the opportunity to conduct or serve in that festival. So all glories to Srimati Sita Thakurani. In that special bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, which is most famous, everybody knows that by Sri Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Tuma Vina Ke Dayaru Jagata Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Utar Mo Sama Patita Prabhu Na Pai Beyar. In that bhajan, Narottam Das Thakur is also praying to Daya Karo Sita Pati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bale Pai Chaitanya Nitai. So he is asking for mercy from Sita Pati. So here the word Sita is Sita Thakurani and Sita Pati is Advaita Acharya. So all glories to Sita Thakurani and Advaita Acharya. So that is the announcement for next week. And I hope you all have a wonderful, blissful week full of Krishna consciousness. So at this moment, I would like to open up the microphone for any of our participants if they have any questions or any reflections. Please help yourself and just unmute yourself one at a time, please. Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to post a question or a query towards Vaishnava Das Prabhu? Prabhuji, I have one question, if that's okay with you. Prabhuji, you are muted.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vaishnava Prabhuji. So, when Srila Prabhupada was offered a small studio at 26 Second Avenue and a storefront in the front of his small residence, when the devotees were trying to remove that sign and put something else, why did Srila Prabhupada said, leave that sign is perfect, matchless gift? If you can throw some of your own reflections and also perhaps what you have heard from others, I think that would be very encouraging. Thank you.
I'm at a loss. I cannot remember.
Okay.
But there was something about it, but it's there. But
okay, no problem. That's okay, Prabhuji. I recollect a little bit because Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness is matchless. And that's what we are going to be giving everyone. So leave that sign, matchless gifts.
Nice.
So
thank you.
Yeah, no. So is there anything else that anybody would like? This is an amazing topic on Srila Prabhupada is unlimited, because anybody who is a Krishna conscious acharya, his pastimes are unlimited. And even if we can get a little drop of nectar, we should consider ourselves very fortunate.
Hare Krishna, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhuji, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Sachidanand Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
Dhanvat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. Dandavat pranams.
So, Prabhu, I've got one question and one comment. So, first is the comment, Prabhu. I just read on this. I just heard on this 125th anniversary. Srila Prabhupada used to walk. This is concerning back to Godhead, actually. Srila Prabhupada used to walk to save whatever money he had in the scorching heat, just to print this back to Godhead, to the printer. And then because of the age and because of the scorching heat, even Srila Prabhupada used to faint, on the way. And then someone will try to lift him up and again he will start walking. So we are so grateful, Prabhu, for the efforts and the labor and the enthusiasm which Srila Prabhupada has put up in compiling and publishing these Back to Godhead magazines, just for the benefit of, it's a selfless service, like how Matchless gift, these are all selfless services. So that is one comment I wanted to make, to glorify Srila Prabhupada. When you read Back to Godhead, I remembered that one. And the question is, Prabhu, Back to Godhead is still published or is it discontinued? I'm not quite aware of that. Is it still published regularly, weekly, or is it now discontinued? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You know what? We used to subscribe to Back to Godhead magazine, but I think we moved to a few different locations. Maybe they couldn't track us down. It is our responsibility to check on that, but maybe we're going to do so.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Pitambar Prabhu's question was that does Back to Godhead still exist? And the answer is yes, it does. Yes, Prabhuji. They have the July-August issue. And if you go to btg.com, you can either subscribe or get more information.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. That's all I wanted to.
Yes,
because when Vaishnava Dasa was reading Back to Godhead, I was thinking of these things, that probably the publication is still going on, but we are not quite aware of that. But at the roots of it, Prabhu's, this is, Prabhupada says he takes buckets of blood to bring one soul to Krishna consciousness, and similar efforts he had put up to publish this Back to Godhead magazine just for our own benefits, So all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Pitambar Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question?
Comment.
Hare Krishna.
I have a comment.
Yes, there is one, Radhika Mataji.
Okay,
Krishna
good.
Prabhu, if you would please take her.
Hare Krishna Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. My question is, I'm very intrigued with the color orange of the robes. So is there any significance that why the color orange has such great value? And I believe it is also the same color that we use in some religious ceremonies as part of tilak sometimes. So if somebody can throw light upon the significance of that color, I'll be really happy. Thanks.
I will give that a try, Satyat.
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji, go ahead.
I think one of the things come to mind is that the saffron actually saffron color, it's like fire. It's a color of fire. That meaning that one who's wearing this particular robe has burnt up all the material desires. That is what I read somewhere. So maybe Sachit can follow up on that.
No, that is true. That's one of the reasons why the sadhu in Sanskrit means good. If you translate that into from Sanskrit to English, the word sadhu means good or a saintly personality. And the reason why they wear it is because it brings about an awareness. From the modern science aspect, the reddish color or the orange color has a higher frequency and it is more visible. So just to the spiritual component is always there, but if you look at even our signal lights, they are either amber or red, and the reason why they choose that color is because of the special frequency which is visible even from far. So that is a very simple explanation in terms of the actual color itself, and that is a warning basically. The reason why the saintly personalities they wear the saffron, it symbolizes the like Prabhuji said, it burns all our uh, karma, our anger, our kam, krodh, moh, matsarya, lobha, our anger, our greed, our illusion, our intoxication towards material things, and envy. So that is the job of a sadhu, to 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 simply destroy all the inebrities or what is called anarthas that we have in us. That is the name, that is the meaning of the word guru. Guru means somebody who can kill the darkness. Guru, one of the meanings of guru. There are more than one meanings of guru. Another meaning of the word guru means heavy. So or guru and sishya. Sishya means one disciple, one who accepts shishti. Shishti means discipline, who is voluntarily allowing himself to be disciplined. So somebody who is highly realized is not supposed to be taken lightly. The color saffron is a saffron of warning. Like we sing in the morning every day in the Guru Puja, Bando Mui Saudhan Mate, Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma, Bando Mui Saudhan Mate. Please, all of you, pay attention. Please, all of you, Bando Mui Saudhan. Saudhan means be careful. So whenever we see a sannyasi, somebody who is in the saffron robes, or a brahmachari, a sincere brahmachari who is in saffron, what it denotes that even Maya will not come close to them if they're practicing their dharma or if they're practicing their ashram properly. So even to Maya it is saying, caution, do not approach me. I'm not accessible. And also caution to all that whenever there is a sadhu, one should respect that person because he is the representative of Krishna. A true sadhu is the representative of Krishna. Sakshat Haritena Samasta Shastra Uktas Tatha Bhav Yataiva Sadbi Kinto Prabhoya Priyeva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charanarvinda. There is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees because they are so Krishnized, they are the messengers of Krishna. And therefore, they should be revered just like the Supreme Lord. And that reverence comes when we see them apart from rest of the common people. And one of the highest signs of renunciation is the color saffron, or what we call in Sanskrit or Hindi, bhagwa, the orange-red color that denotes their quality of renunciation. The color, the saffron represents renunciation. So these are the several reasons. So when one is in a renounced state, then one is going to wear this color. That way it is not so fancy. At the same time, it is a warning signal for all concerned, including Maya. So that is whatever little understanding I have. I'm sharing that with you, along with what Vaishnava Prabhu said.
Incredible. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It was a nice question, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Pitambar Prabhu, I think you have unmuted yourself. Would you like to say something? Go ahead.
Right, Prabhu. You are the one who reads my mind, Prabhu. I don't know how, but you read my mind. Thank you, Prabhu. So I have got one more question, if you allow me, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, please direct it to Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu. Go ahead.
Sure. So Vaishnava Dasa Prabhuji, please enlighten me now. This has been going on in my mind for quite some time. So Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada always said that, one must preach. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that whoever has taken birth in India is supposed to be preaching, because his vision or dream is that every nook and corner, this Hare Krishna movement or the Nama Kirtan, must spread. And Lord Krishna also said in Bhagavad Gita that the one who preaches is most dear to me. So Prabhu, all these three, when we combine, we get the impetus to preach. So we get the enthusiasm. We put up our efforts to pour our buckets of blood into preaching and bringing even one soul, even if it's one soul coming to Krishna consciousness, we will say, yay, that's the victory, We want one soul. But Prabhu, nowadays what I see, despite our best efforts, people are not interested, or people can come in the beginning, okay, just to see the curiosity, what's happening, what not. They might ask questions, and then the interest fades away. So I can see, wherever, the number of people attending goes down, and then the preacher would think in his head, am I going wrong somewhere? Or are there any efforts which is substandard on my part? Like, because we see the response getting fade away. So Prabhu, my honest and sincere question to you is, in such a case, what should be the preacher's psychology, the preacher's mentality? What should we lean upon such that we continue what we are continuing to do, what we are doing, and we follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions to bring in as many souls to Krishna consciousness as possible. Why I say is because Prabhu, sometimes we get dejected. And I'm sharing my personal experience. I get dejected at why the number is going down. In any of the groups we see, so people are interested. If you said there's some disco, there's some, party, then even parking will not be available that much. But Prabhu, I get dejected. So Prabhu, I'm sharing my heart to you. Please guide me.
Okay, that is an amazing question. It's an amazing question from a sincere devotee who's feeling the pangs of not so good results. So, and that is an experience by many, many devotees. You echo the sentiments of many, many sincere devotees. When Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if one offers me a leaf, flower, etc., I accept that. But that is based on the love behind the offering. It's not so much what is being presented, but more the love behind the offering. If one offers me with love and devotion, then I accept. So you're not judged on your results, but you're more judged on your effort that you put in. The sincerity, the faith, and the effort that you inject into your service, that is what you're judged on. There's no loss or diminution in this activity. Everything is sort of cemented. Nothing is going to get less. You may externally feel that all these souls are attracted to the illusory energy, but when I'm offering pure spiritual guidance, there's a reluctance for that. That's an external display. There are many things at work. The marketing through the television by the major corporations who invest billions of dollars to psychologists and analysts as what to put out into the TV, We don't have those advertising dollars like them. So therefore, the general population is exposed to greater influence by the media, which we cannot compete with. So they have a stronger attraction. That's one way of looking at it. So it's difficult. But the important point is that you are sowing the seed, the bhakti bija lata, or whatever they say. You're sowing the seed by oral reception. By oral reception, externally, the recipient externally is saying, like, I never hear you, but the heart has heard the transcendental sound vibration. It may not take effect in this lifetime, but it may produce results in the next lifetime, or maybe later on in that particular person's life. So there's no loss of diminution on your part. So don't be dejected, disillusioned, whatever. And also we have to understand that a program is in place. The program of the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara Yuga. We in Kali Yuga, what do you expect? I mean, what is expected? Prabhupada says we are into a golden age which lasts 10,000 years. And after 10,000 years, there's no ISKCON, there's no Islam, there's no anything. There's nothing, nothing. Even the Muslims brag, we're going to overtake the world, we're going to conquer the world, everybody's going to become Muslim, etc., etc. There's hardly any practicing Muslims today. They're in a volume as a growing number, but there's hardly any practicing. There's hardly any practicing Christians today. There's hardly any practicing Hindus today. We are Hindu, but we all follow the Vedas. None of us follow the Vedas. Okay, at least a little bit of the Veda we cannot follow. So it's so difficult. Mahaprabhu has come and give us chanting as a simple way back to God. So we in Kali Yuga, this is the expectancy of Kali Yuga. But even though we know that the odds are stacked against us, that is overwhelming, still because we are compassionate, because of that Prabhupada's compassion, Mahaprabhu's compassion, it has all filtered down into the sincere devotees. And they will still go on book distribution, chanting in the street, giving classes, doing all kinds of approaching different types of people, even though we know the result may not be there. But we do our best. So thank you, Prabhu. Satyajit can enlighten us on that further.
Thank you so much.
You made some very good, great points, Prabhuji. And yeah, dejection can come. It is true because of the lack of interest or the number of people. But here's what, over the years, what I have seen, what I have experienced, following the footsteps of some very sincere devotees, we should not get dejected. Even if there is one person who is sincere enough to listen to Krishna conscious topics or involve himself, that is time well spent. Srila Prabhupada used to quote his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that when you're preaching minimum to 2 persons. First to yourself and to the other listener. So if we have that kind of a consciousness, what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, practically talking about Prabhupada, back again, right after New York, San Francisco, 1966, they are all had arranged a great, they had made a huge attempt, some of the followers of Srila Prabhupada and some who are following Prabhupada, even the well-wishers, to hold a huge program of Srila Prabhupada in a huge rented ballroom theater. And when they spend the money on renting, and then they spend money on the flyers and putting it out there in the Haight-Ashbury area and everywhere, like you said, it is a fact, when there's birthdays and fun and parties, you can expect thousands, even more than you have invited. You will suddenly find all those people showing up. But when it comes to kirtan, katha and stuff like that, it's minimum number of people. So similarly, a great Mahabhagat like Srila Prabhupada, when the time came and the entire auditorium was practically empty. They were just in the first seat, seated some of his disciples and some of his few well-wishers. Otherwise, can you imagine renting an auditorium, and an auditorium like only if just the front seat, first 10 seats are taken and the entire auditorium, including the balcony, is vacant? That's total dejection for a normal person. But Prabhupada gave the katha. He performed his kirtan, and then later on, the devotees approached and said, Swamiji, Prabhupada, we are very sorry. We tried, but hardly anybody showed up. So Prabhupada then smiled and said, who said so? Didn't you see Naradji? Didn't you see Shankar Mahadev, Lord Shiva? Didn't you see all those different demigods? They were there and they were listening to Krishna Katha. So similarly, when we personally, we are attempting to follow in the footsteps of His Divine Grace in a very small way. And like you said, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned that Bharat Bhumite Manusya Janma Hoilo Ja, Jivan Sharthak Kori Koro Paro Upkar, Amar Agya Taro Ei Desh, Jara Dekho Tare Kaho Krishna Updesh. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that one who was born in Bharat Bhumi in India is very fortunate. Bharat Bhumite Manusya Janma Hoilo Ja, Jivan Sarthak Kori. Mahaprabhu said, first you become perfect yourself. Jivan Sarthak Kori Karo Paro Upkar. And then you share this Krishna consciousness to others and give them this wonderful matchless gift, if I may, Krishna consciousness. So we should not be discouraged. Although it may happen because of it is our lack of our strong sadhana or our own consciousness that we are not able to see that. We have not only ourselves that we are preaching to, even if it is one person, wherever you're speaking, like Prabhupada said, like Narad Muni once asked Narayan that, Lord, wherever I go, they ask me, can you tell us where can we find Lord Narayana for sure? Is there a particular place where we can find him 100%? So Narayan, he says, I will ask Naradji says, I will ask Lord Narayan. So when he asked Lord Narayan, many devotees all over the universe, when I'm traveling, they ask me this question, which particular place you are there for sure? So then Lord Narayan answers, Naham vasami vaikunthe yogina hridayena cha mad bhakta yatra gayanti tatra tisthami narada. Oh Narad, it is not necessary that you will find me 100% in Vaikuntha. Naham vasami vaikunthe. Yogina hridayena cha. It is not 100% possible that you may find me 100% in the heart of the yogis. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Even they don't get the darshan all the time. Yogina hridayena cha. But certainly you will find me in that place. Mad bhakta yatra gayanti tatra tisthami narad. Wherever my devotees sing my glories, you will certainly find me there. So it is a question of believing what Naradji said, what Lord Krishna himself says, what Prabhupada said from his own experience when there were hardly any people showing up in the San Francisco ballroom. So similarly, if we are sincere, sometimes we are tested whether this person is after numbers or if this person is sincere for preaching. So that is a big test also. It's a litmus test. Krishna wants to see, like Mahaprabhu says, Dhanam Janam Na Sundarim. So Janam means followers. Is that person interested in followers? Is that person interested in his own self-aggrandizement, that he wants a lot of followers? Or if he is going to do the Harikatha or Kirtan as if there is 1 million people or there's only one person. He's doing it because he wants to please Krishna. He was doing it because he wants to please the Acharya. And he's doing it for his own purification. So there is no question of dejection if we have that consciousness. I hope this helps, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. And I try to imbibe the same thing within my heart. I have been conducting many kathas. Sometimes it's a house full of many people, prior to COVID, when the temple or the home programs, and even on Zoom. Sometimes we have a lot of people, sometimes we find 5 people, sometimes there's 3 people. But we should never get distracted from our motive, which is to purify ourselves and give Krishna consciousness to the best of our ability without getting dejected. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful answer from both of you, Prabhus. That gives so much impetus to me, at least to make sure that we are not overcome by the feeling of dejection. But one point I wanted to clarify, Prabhu, we are not there on the number games. For sure, we are not there. Even if it is one person, that's enough. We are satisfied. But so we are not on that aggrandizement attitude. No, that's not our motto. But the general question was, when there are so many people, when they know the things are going on, they would select rather the filth and the dirt rather than the pure katha, and that is where I feel dejected, because as Vaishnava Das Prabhu said, we are operating in Kali Yuga. What do you expect? It is already written in Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada's purport is very, very clear that day after day after day, the things are going to deteriorate. It is not going to improve. It is going to deteriorate. And we are operating in that environment. And that is what makes me feel dejected, that, we are putting up efforts, but people are not receptive enough to understand the importance of what is being said, So that is where I wanted to express my feelings to both of you and share my heart, basically share my heart. So I was kind of lost that why this thing is happening, why the phenomenon. But both of you gave one very good reason, that when you are preaching, first you are preaching for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. That's one. And number two, when you are preaching to 2 persons, at least first to yourself, because we say in the beginning that I'm not qualified to speak. However, I'm speaking for my own purification. So that is one. And the second one is that 1 person is enough. Now, if you add 6 more zeros, doesn't matter. If you remove 6 more zeros, doesn't matter. At least there is 1 person. So thank you so much for the guidance. Appreciate it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So is there anybody else before we move on to the last part of the program, the kirtan? So thank you all very much. Vaishnava Prabhu, would you like to do kirtan?
Are you ready for that? Or?
Okay. All right. I can, if you're not ready, I can do it. It's okay. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Harinam Gai Gora Madhura Sware Harinam Gai Gora Madhura Sware Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Grihe thako vane thako sada hari bole dakho sukhe dukhe bhula nako vadane hari naam karo re Harinam Gai Gora Madhura Sware Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Namaste Nara Singhaya Namaste Nara Singhaya Hiranyakashi Jaye Narsinga Narsinga Madin Sharanam Prapade Kara Kamalavare Nakha Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Vrindam Keshavadhrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Tavakara Kamalavare Nakha Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Vrindam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Narasingha Dev Jaya Narahari Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Sarva Bhakti Vignanashak Narsingadev Bhagwan Ki Jai Bhakta Prabhala Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय समावेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय समावेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu, thank you for enlightening us and on this very special week of Prabhupada's appearance, the matchless gifts. Indeed, it is a matchless gift. Every day when we wake up, we should be thankful for this matchless gift of Krishna consciousness as His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada and His sincere followers have bestowed upon us. And may we pray to Srila Prabhupada for our spiritual advancement, for the pleasure of Radha Krishna, and for His divine grace's pleasure. Thank you all again. On behalf of Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad Group and Bhagavad Vani, the servant would like to thank all of you all once again, and we will see you next Sunday. Next Sunday is going to be special because on Tuesday is Radha Ashtami. So we will be having a very special program for in glorification of Srimati Radharani. So stay tuned in, 5 p.m., actually 5:30 p.m., half an hour late, because I believe the Ottawa ISKCON Temple has invited us to speak on this, and they had requested that if we can start this at 5:30 p.m. because their Aarti starts at 5. So they said that 5:30 would be ideal if we can kind of adjust a little bit. I said that's not an issue, and I hope Vaishnava Prabhu, it's okay with you as well. Thank you, Prabhuji. And there's so 5:30 p.m. next Sunday, just a little bit of adjustment. We will be trying our best to glorify Srimati Radharani. Hare Krishna. Have a blessed, wonderful Krishna conscious week. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare
And all
Krishna.
glories to all the Gaudiya Acharyas. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all.